And they did activate their EOC earlier this week, I believe. So it is something they're watching.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comstock channel. I'm Marlon Bowling with you. So glad you could join us. As always, make sure you like these videos, subscribe to the videos by clicking on that little bell icon down below, and share these videos with others as well. Man, we've had all kinds of interest this week. In the programs, we've been talking about the flooding issues. Right now, my very special guest is Mike Dulin. Now, he is an emergency management director, or I think it's close to the right title. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, and tell me what your title is with the Army Corps of Engineers there.
So I'm an emergency management specialist with the Kansas City District's Corps of Engineers.
So I want to talk with you about the situation, all kinds of water coming downstream from the Northwestern Corn Belt, I like to call it, or the upper Midwest. A lot of it is sourcing all the way up in the Dakotas and Minnesota, and it's all kind of headed your direction. We're hearing about all the issues with small towns along the river systems being flooded out, cropland being flooded everywhere, and it's got to be causing nightmares on navigation too. If you would, from your standpoint down there in Kansas City, talk to me about what you know is going on upstream and what's headed your way.
So, yeah, we've been in close coordination with our Omaha district up north. So starting last week, we were monitoring the situation very closely last Thursday, Friday, and then obviously through this week. But all that rainfall that came in up there in southeastern South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, all that kind of entered the Missouri River system downstream of our major flood control reservoirs on the Missouri River. And so all that water is entering as unregulated runoff, and then it'll slowly make its way down as a flood surge into our district. So right now, we're looking at seeing that flood crest approach our district and peak around Sunday, June 30th, up in an area called Rouleau, Nebraska. And so when that happens, that crest is going to come through. It's going to put some water on levees that participate in the Corps of Engineers Public Law 8499 program. The fortunate thing is right now, none of those levees are forecast to overtop as that flood crest moves through. Subject to change, of course, as we see additional precipitation throughout the rest of this week. But right now, it primarily looks like we're going to see lowland flooding on the riverward side of levees. So we'll just monitor the situation and stand by to support the states and local interests.
Now, there's been a lot of correlation drawn between now and back in 1993 when we had just catastrophic flooding all over the place. Now, that was the year after Mount Pinatubo exploded, and we just had a summer of rain all over the place. Now, I remember that one in Kansas City and St. Joe, Missouri. The Missouri was way out of its banks. But I believe that was a rain event just all over the Midwest at that time and in the plains as well. This probably is more centered further north, but unless you start getting that rain further south to contribute on top of that, maybe it'll handle it.
Yes, that's what we're seeing right now. So we discuss this with the National Weather Service daily. And like I mentioned, we do have some rainfall coming through this week, later in the week, but the totals are not looking like they're going to have a major impact on that flood crest as it moves through our area. So some of the rain coming in Friday night, that should all enter the Missouri River system prior to the flood crest reaching our district boundaries and kind of move its way downriver before that initial flood crest gets here. So if the timing of that rain and the flood crest all works out right, it should move through with only minor disruptions, primarily riverward of the levee systems along the Missouri River.
So that is as it stands right now, correct?
Yeah, as it stands right now.
What if there are more storm systems that come through out of Canada?
Yeah, so I mean, anytime you get in a flood situation, right, it's a very dynamic situation, so you have to monitor it daily and make adjustments for those changes. And so that's what we're doing. We've got our Emergency Operations Center activated here. We coordinate with the state emergency management agencies over Missouri side and the Kansas side as well, keeping them informed of our capabilities and what we're seeing. And when we do get in one of these floods, there's two types of assistance that the Army Corps of Engineers can provide. One of those is technical assistance. That's where we send engineers out to serve in kind of an advisory role to help communities and levee districts organize flood patrols, troubleshoot any technical issues that they might be having. And then there's direct assistance. So we keep a adequate stock of flood fight materials on hand in our district at different locations throughout the district. Those materials include sandbags, sandbag filling machines, pumps, and other rapidly deployable flood barriers. And so far, we haven't received any requests for direct assistance from our state partners or our levee districts. That could change as the flood crest nears our district, but we are standing by and ready to support should those requests come in.
So what is the Army Corps having to do to mitigate the situation? Are you having to change your water release tactics on dams upstream in the entire basin, or how do you do it?
So the reservoirs upstream, when we hit flood stage, they operate exclusively for flood control at that point, trying to minimize downstream impacts. And so fortunately in this situation, there were high inflows coming into the reservoirs. Those inflows have tapered off. So that means that our water management team at Northwestern Division has been able to reduce flows out of our reservoirs up there, which then don't contribute additional water to an already ongoing flood situation. And again, with a flood control reservoir, it's a balancing act, right? Water comes in, it's got to go somewhere. So you try to meter that out as strategically and carefully as possible to avoid downstream impacts. And in this instance, our team up north with Northwestern Division Water Management has been able to do that quite successfully.
Well, now I know that I-29, for example, had been shut down because of water over the interstate up north. There was a bridge taken out, I believe, around Sioux Falls. Talk to that, if you would. What kind of damage is that doing to the transportation infrastructure further up?
So I'm not tracking that specific incident. That's more something that our Omaha district would have eyes on. So we're primarily focused in our district. We cover the Missouri River and tributaries from Rolla, Nebraska, down to about St. Louis, Missouri.
Do you think that it's going to impact barge traffic? I know you have a lot of barges from St. Joe on south, especially.
With the river levels, their current forecast, I don't anticipate major disruptions to the navigation industry down here in our stretch of river. Now, that said, when flood levels at river stages get so high that our levee systems are loaded, oftentimes the U.S. Coast Guard will enforce no wake zones, so the levees don't get that wave wash action from barge traffic and boats going by. And if it gets bad enough to where the river has loaded levees to the very top, like putting them on the brink of overtopping, oftentimes the U.S. Coast Guard will shut down navigation until those water levels recede. But right now down here, subject to change, of course, we're not expecting to see that high of river levels to where it would be major disruption to the navigation industry.
It seems like it's only been a couple of months ago where everybody was complaining the barges couldn't work because the river was too low.
That is true. The river had been quite low for the last 2 years just due to the ongoing drought that we've had. But with all the rain we've had this spring, here locally in the Kansas City district on the Kansas side and the Missouri side, a lot of those drought conditions have been alleviated.
So there was a lot of rain on the eastern side of Iowa too, I believe, like in northeast Iowa. You get up into southeast Minnesota and southwest Wisconsin. A lot of water coming downstream from there too, and that means your counterparts in St. Louis would also have to be very alert as far as water levels because they're going to join right there, right?
Yeah, certainly. So just St. Louis district, Rock Island district right upstream from St. Louis district, they all have emergency operations centers and function very similar to the way we do here in Kansas City. So that is something they'll be closely monitoring. I know I have coworkers that work in the Rock Island district over there by Davenport, Iowa. And they did activate their EOC earlier this week, I believe. So it is something they're watching.
Well, I appreciate the update, Mike. I know you're very busy, and thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to get us updated on what's going on. So far, fingers crossed, things are holding together fairly well downstream. I know it's a mess upstream where all the flooding is currently taking place, but I may keep in touch with you down the road a little while and see how things are going by then. Hopefully the rain's kind of back off a little bit and we can get back to normal. But I appreciate that very much. All the best to you, Mike. Thanks for all the work you guys do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You bet. Mike Dulin with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. He is based in the Kansas City district with an update on what's going on with the Missouri Basin right now. Well, that'll do it for this episode. For producer Brianne Hendrickson, I'm Marlon Bowling. We'll catch you next time right here on the Comstock channel. Thanks for joining us on our Comstock YouTube channel. Don't forget you can also find us on Facebook and TikTok as well. Futures trading involves risk. The risk of loss in trading futures and or options is substantial, and each investor and or trader must consider whether this is a suitable investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.